What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 33 of the Diego Colley Football Show. And the NFL regular season has officially concluded. And what a regular season it was. Got some big games to cover today. Seahawks, Niners, Bucks, Panthers. The thriller we had on Sunday Night Football, unexpected. We got that game. We got the college football playoff games to cover. And let's just get right into it. So Saturday night, the Seattle Seahawks take down the San Francisco 49ers 13-3. In a game that felt like a whomping. This felt like a 30-3 type game. If you didn't have the scoreboard when you were watching the game, you would have felt like the Seahawks were up upwards of 3 scores. And they ended up winning the game by 10 points. But the scoreboard does not tell the whole story of this game. This was an utterly dominant performance by the Seahawks, honestly, in both phases of the game. And we'll start on the offensive side of the ball and get to the defense because the defense was absolutely outstanding. But the offense, they put up 13 points, and you look at that and you'd say, it probably wasn't the best day from them, but they moved the football pretty well, I thought. They ran the ball great. This was probably the best game that both running backs have had at the same time, maybe in all the games they've ever played with each other, because it wasn't just sometimes when they have a successfully on the ground, it's one of them is kind of the workhorse back. One of them gets the upwards of 15 carries. The other stays around 9 or 8. But no, Kenneth Walker had 16 carries for 97 yards, didn't get in the end zone as expected. Zach Charbonnet had 17 carries for 74 yards, got in the end zone. First touchdown of the game was a 27-yard run where it was a Kenneth Walker type run, I thought, from Zach Charbonnet. He gets the ball going to the right side, sees the cutback lane, cuts back all the way across the field and scores a 30-yarder. K9 also had a 20-yard run, and they came on a big 3rd and 16. They both complemented each other very, very well. And in the receiving game as well, I thought this was one of the best games the Seahawks from a screen games perspective. Kenneth Walker had 4 receptions for 36 yards. He was their second leading receiver. Charbonnet had 3 for 23. And it was just a consistent, well-ran offense, bar a few situational errors, in my opinion. And the first one started on that opening drive. That opening drive was one of the best opening drives the Seattle Seahawks have had all year. They were running the ball successfully. It was an 8-minute drive to open the game just down the throat of the San Francisco 49ers. And they were converted. They ran a great screen to K9 on the opening drive. They were using both running backs at times. Sam was completing good third down passes. He had a conversion to Eric Saubert where he goes through all of his reads on the right side. He's getting blitzed, and he gets all the way back to Saubert just in time before he gets hit to convert the first down. And then they get to the 1, and that's where when it kind of, after this sequence played out, it felt like, wow, like what did we just do? Did we just blow a massive opportunity in the game that we're going to need points? And they got to the 1-yard line, and people are criticizing the call. People are criticizing Darnold. I think both are fair. On this drive, it felt like they were averaging 5 yards a carry. They were, as they were the entire game, the offensive line was absolutely moving people in the run game. And they get down to the 1-yard line, and I'm not mad at it's hard to say, like, I think they should have handed the ball off. Yes. I think it was a poor call, but it was 1st and goal. You're trying to catch them off guard. Maybe they're going to sell it for the run. And the play was open. So whether you agree with the decision or not, Charbonnet was wide open in the flat, which is what I assume was usually on those bootleg type of plays. That should be your first read. And it looks like Sam kind of looks at him, and maybe he just doesn't trust it. Maybe there's a guy in his view, and he doesn't want to throw that late because that's when a turnover can happen. I'm fine with that. But he has to get rid of the ball. And that's why I think kind of the more of the blame on the play is Darnold rather than Kubiak. Because it's not like they were asking him to make some elaborate, crazy throw across his body on the move. They were asking him to play action fake and dump it off to Zach Charbonnet in the flat, I assume is what the goal of that play was. And he didn't. He didn't trust it. And if you don't trust it or not, it's 1st and goal from the 1-yard line. You're not going to get grounding. You have a tight end on the back of the end zone. You can sail this just out of the end zone. Or you can sail it towards the sideline where you would have thrown to Charbonnet. There was a lot of options to escape once you didn't trust the play call. And if you didn't trust the play call, he could have rolled right. He could have done a lot of things to avoid taking that sack. And he had Bethune coming right at him. He saw him that you can just chuck the ball 20 yards in the 5th row of the stands, and you'll be perfectly fine. So that's where my issue really was. And then after that, he gets sacked to the 12-yard line. And instead of kind of being aggressive, they run it twice in a row. The first one gained 4 yards. You get to the 8-yard line. Okay, that's a reasonable spot to throw. It's not 3rd and goal from the 20. They decide to run it again, and we see it was because they wanted to be aggressive and go for it from the 4-yard line, which I didn't really love that decision in a game where points really were a premium. And the Seahawks have been a team that goes for it the least out of any team in the league just based on percentages. That doesn't mean I think that McDonald's a conservative coach, but it just felt a little like out of the ordinary. Maybe he felt like they were going to get into a shootout, but that didn't happen. I don't know if I don't know. He said they wanted to be aggressive to start the game. I'm fine with that, I guess. I just didn't really like any of the sequencing to those play calls, to be honest. So they the run, then they go for it on fourth down, and he's looking to the left side, where it's Cooper Kupp and Jake Bobo running a little rub concept. I don't even know if Shaheed was on the field, actually. I'm going to check that out real quick. This is the third. In the last 3 weeks, he has 2 receptions for hardly any yards. I believe it's under 10. It's kind of interesting the way that they're using him. In this game, though, I watched every single play action pass that the Seahawks ran in this game. And there were a few plays that looked like they were drawn up to get Shaheed the ball down the field and take a massive shot to him. But Robert Saleh, the San Francisco 49ers defense, did a pretty good job of having a safety over the top of his side or wherever this shot was going to. He was kind of the deep, someone call it a decoy guy, and JSN often was the guy that was coming across underneath in those crossers, and he was catching the ball. So in past games where it felt like they weren't trying to take the shots deep, I didn't necessarily feel that about this game. I thought there was multiple opportunities where they maybe wanted to take the shot, and Darnold wasn't forcing anything, which he didn't have to at all. And it got to a point later in the game where they didn't need to be uber aggressive and take that shot down the field. So yeah, I'm looking at the all 22 right now of that fourth down play, and the play starts with Barner, Jake Bobo, and Cooper Kupp all lined up to the left. Barner motions to the inside, ends up coming across the field, and he is actually the one that, in my opinion, was open on this play. And Sam kind of he looks to the left side, and it's Kupp running an out route, Bobo running a slant. Kupp was never open. I didn't love the decision to throw it there. He was going to have a guy in his face in a second, so from that moment on, he couldn't get off of it. So when you look to the left, and that's your first read, and they're bringing pressure up in your face, and Charbonnet kind of blows the blitz pickup, he has to throw that. So once he made that decision, I thought the play was kind of doomed from there. He could have went to Bobo if it was super early, but they had a guy backing up, kind of similar to the way that Darnold was picked off in the Rams game by Kobe Turner. But Barner would have came open later. Jason's running a little like weird corner route. I didn't love the play design. I didn't love any of the really play calls in that 4-play red zone sequence. But to be fair to the decision of Mike Macdonald, him not getting it on 4th and goal from the 4-yard line led to the 49ers kind of being pinned on their first drive. And that sets up a situation where Kyle Shanahan, in his first scripted plays that you kind of have, when you're at the 4-yard line, you have to kind of go away from that. You can't run maybe all the plays that you want to start the game with, where in a situation where you would have usually been on the 30-yard line or whatever hash you're on. You can't do that when you're on the 4. They have to hand it off to McCaffrey. He checks it down to use check in the flat, and then there was an incompletion on 3rd and 3, and it sets up a punt where he catches it on the 50-yard line. There's a face mask by the 49ers. So you get the ball on the 35-yard line, and your gamble that didn't pay off for you up in the goal line when you went for it kind of pays off in a field position scenario where you just run the ball to Zach Charbonnet, and it's one of the most well-blocked plays and well-ran plays I've seen the Seahawks run. It was a great run by Zach Charbonnet. It wasn't the usual one of his where he kind of just runs to the middle. He's going to get his 5 yards. Not at all. It was a beautiful cutback. You got Kupp motion on the right side, Barnes on the left side. Barner makes a great block out in space. Everyone kind of has their man, and Charbonnet usually is a guy who would just kind of run into that pile, get his positive game, but he sees it right away. There's a great gap, and Barner seals the guy on the edge, and Charbonnet has the speed to make a man miss a little stutter step and get in the end zone, and that kind of set the tone for the Seahawks and what they were going to do all day, to be honest. Now, the rest of the first half, the Seahawks go in the half up 10-3, and they were in a spot where anyone watching the game, kind of similar to the final score, was like they should be up arguably 17-3 if you're being objective. It could have been 21-3. You could say you should have scored a touchdown on the first drive. They scored a touchdown on the second drive, should have been 14. Jason Myers misses a field goal, which he hasn't done like hardly at all year, a 47-yarder. That's well within his range. Anything under 50, he's kind of been automatic on all year. He makes a field goal. And then that's kind of where they go into the half. And both those situations where they were moving the ball and they kind of just stopped on third downs. He misses the field goal, makes one. It should have at least been 13-3 with the missed kick. But the defense, we have to talk about the defense. This was one of the most dominating defensive games, maybe the most dominant game I've seen, using comparing to the level of the opponent. Obviously, they were dominant when they played Max Brosmer. And when they played, Phillip Rivers, they gave up one touchdown. When they shut out the Vikings, yes, when they give up only 9 points to the Falcons, they have had dominant performances all year. Last week against Bryce Young, when they gave up only 10 points. I think compared to the relative of the opponent's skill and how the opponent was playing, the way that the 49ers were beating people in the last few weeks, with them beating the Bears 42-38 and then beating the Colts 48-27, the Titans 37-24. They were on a 3-week rampage on offense where it didn't matter how good the other team's offense was playing. They were scoring. And it didn't matter who was playing. Trent Williams was out all of that Bears game. Pearsall has barely been there all year. It did not matter. Kyle Shanahan was scheming guys open, and Brock Purdy was just having his way on offense. Anyone he wanted to go to, he was scrambling, and that was not the case in this game. The Seahawks weren't trying to trick anyone. They played their base nickel defense, which is kind of what they come out in, because they have Nicky Minori, who is 6'3", however, whatever his measurables are. He's that freak of nature that you have on your football team that, he's not when you think of a nickel package, a lot of teams have a smaller safety, a smaller cornerback in the slot. That is not what he is. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, he runs a 4.38 40. They were hitting in this game. I think this was their best tackling game of the entire season. Christian McCaffrey did not break a single tackle in this game. They did an absolutely outstanding job of just shutting him down. And he's the guy that has led the NFL in broken tackles this entire year, and he didn't have one in this football game. He's forced a league high of 112 missed tackles this season. He didn't force a single missed tackle against the Seahawks, and that kind of was the trend for the entire team. I'm not sure if I can find this stat, but I don't know if they missed any tackles in this game, which is kind of crazy to say, but there were so many times where Brock would dump it off into the flat, and there would be an opportunity for a guy one-on-one in space, and it was a lot of times with corners. Reek Woolen had an outstanding game in this game from a coverage and tackling perspective. They didn't even really try to test him deep. But from a pure coverage perspective, from a coverage and tackling, well, I was going to say tackling, there was multiple times where kind of an old Reek, what I would expect is him coming out one-on-ones with a running back, a receiver, or tight end. I'm not the most confident that Reek's going to make that tackle, or that he's going to just maybe dive at his ankles, bring him down. He was great in this game from that sense. Multiple times in the flats, him, Devin Witherspoon, they're coming downhill on a guy, and they just level him and don't allow him to gain those extra yards. Reek almost had a pick six on that 4th and 1 early in the game where they bring heat, and Brock has nothing. He kind of has to just chuck it off to the flat, and he was lucky that it was not overturned for a pick six. This was the game on national television that I think finally, the Seahawks have been getting respect, but the Rams game, a lot of people are like, this is a fluke. They got lucky. This was the game that opened up everyone's eyes. Like, the Seahawks are rightfully so the Super Bowl favorite. They're getting a lot of love nationally from everyone. People saying, oh my God, look at Sam Darnold, this comeback story. And let's talk about Sam Darnold for a second. If he plays like this the entire way, there is no reason the Seahawks should not win the Super Bowl. He was 20-26, 198 yards. He was 7.6 yards per attempt. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But obviously, you're going to need to be a little bit more clinical in the red zone. But like I said, that first decision, they should have just ran the ball there. Him and Kubiak can help each other out a little bit more on each side of their end of the bargain. But there was no real plays in this game besides the play where he kind of trips and he still tries to hand it off, and they kind of get lucky, right? Getting back on top of the ball, and it wasn't a lost fumble. There was none of those plays over the middle of the field where there's no one open, the ball gets batted, goes in the air, gets intercepted, or he didn't really try to force anything downfield. He was careful with the football. He was careful, but he was pushing the ball down the field a little more. Thinking back to that, the Panthers game, there was no really of those shots down the middle where it's those intermediate crossers to JSN that they hit in this game that were successful. JSN had a casual 6 receptions for 84 yards, but he did it in a way where the game script towards the end of the game, they didn't need to force him the ball. And early in the game, I believe he had over 70, around half, around the third quarter mark. But when each of your running backs have 16 and 17 carries, there's just not going to really be a game where you're going to need to be taking these shots on the field. But those intermediate shots to him were on plays where he could have taken the shot deep. He didn't force it to Shaheed. And he just takes JSN, and JSN runs for 15 to 20 yards each time. It was a well-calculated game plan by Clint Kubiak, and I think it was just massive because thinking back to that Rams game when they did end up winning, I didn't think he called the greatest game overall. And this game, I thought he called exactly the right plays that he needed to be calling, bar that red zone sequence. He was smart. I feel like the third down plays were very calculated, to be honest. They weren't trying to do too much. I'm not sure their efficiency. I mean, they were 6 of 13, which is okay. You can live with that. When the San Francisco 49ers are 2 of 9 and 0 for 2 on fourth down, you can live with 50% on third down. They had 361 total yards. They were in 67 plays compared to the 49ers, only 42 and 173 total yards. And that's on kind of the same amount of drives. So that just shows how much you were shutting down the 49ers offense. They had 5.4 yards per play. The Niners had 4.1. 181 passing yards. The Niners had 120. And Christian McCaffrey rushed for 8 carries and 23 yards in a game that they were down 7 to 10 a majority of the game. Kyle Shanahan kind of abandoned the run game. He didn't try to get it established at all. He was dropping Brock Purdy back 19 of 27, 127 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt, and 1 interception. So this was just such a statement on so many levels from this team. And they didn't even play the greatest on offense, but Sam Darnold didn't have any Sam Darnold plays that people will say, oh, he's going to give you a few of those every game. He didn't have any of those. And he played a stable brand of football. And how satisfying was it to see the Seahawks, all those videos in the locker room, all the Instagram lives, all the pictures of them smoking the cigars in the Niners locker room. How great was that to see? And how demoralizing it was for the Niners fan base, who, if they won that game, they would have been in a situation where they're not going to leave Levi's Stadium all the month of January to February. They're not going to have to leave Levi's because they're going to host every game in the playoffs and host every game in the Super Bowl. And now they're going to go to Philly, and who knows what's going to happen there. I think that's a game that's a toss-up, but what a turn of events for San Francisco 49ers fans. Okay, up next, let's talk about the NFC South. And to start off, I just have to say what a weird situation this was, because due to the fact of it being like a half-clinching situation, both teams can't clinch. Obviously you were watching it because it was a standalone game, 1:30 p.m. Pacific on the West Coast. But just the vibes of it were a little off. And the referees, I thought, were a little bit weird. There was a lot of questionable calls going in the way of the Buccaneers. And the ending of the game, which we'll talk about in a second, just ending and the Bucs are like, they're cheering for Tyler Shuck. We never root for the Saints, but we're doing it tonight. And they can't even put on the hats and the T-shirts after they just won a game against a division rival to get to 8-9, which is an absolutely ridiculous record to beat and have a chance to win a division. And they can't even celebrate because they need another team to win. A team to win over a team that's been eliminated for weeks. The Seahawks eliminated the Falcons when they beat Atlanta in Atlanta. Was that 4 or 5 weeks ago? And they are the team that's determining the fate because of a 3-way tiebreaker after the Bucs would have the singular tiebreaker over the Panthers. Just a really, really weird situation. But we'll talk about this game. It was an ugly football game. It was kind of an epitome of how both these teams have played football this entire season. The score ends at, I know the Panthers ended up winning by 3, and I forgot what the exact score was, but it was just odd. And it was just a classic Panthers game script. It was 14-16. Panthers are down they lose by 2. They were down the entire game and make it a 1-score game at the end. Almost gives himself an opportunity to take the lead to the end of the game. But just kind of a typical Panthers game script. And I don't know why they got away from the run so quickly and easily. Chuba Hubbard only had 5 carries for 10 yards. Rico Dowdle had 7 carries for 10. You're going to win in low-scoring games. You're never going to get in a shootout for the Carolina Panthers. I don't know why they decided to abandon the run so early. From the Buccaneers side, you saw flashes. That's kind of what you've seen all year. K. Dotton's leading receiver, though. 7 receptions, 94 yards, 1 touchdown. And Mike Evans, 2 for 34. Emeka Egbuka had 1 catch for 8 yards. Chris Godwin, 1 for 8. Jalen McMillan, 1 for 11. Just a disaster, an absolute waste of all this talent that you have on your roster, to be honest. And K. Dotton, no offense to K. Dotton, Husky legend, but he should not be your leading receiver in a game like this. You should find the ability to get to your guys the football. Bucky Irving, I mean, the Bucs relied on their run game. Bucky Irving was 26 carries for 85 yards, 3.3 yards per carry, but it was great. He carried the ball 26 times. You can't hate on that. Baker was 16 for 22, 203, 9 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Bryce Young threw for 266, so that's on the higher end of passing yardage averages for him. But let's just talk about some decision making with the Carolina Panthers. And where we have to start. It's the flea flicker. What told Dave Canales, who I like Dave Canales. I think what he's building there is definitely positive. Like, he's got this team in the playoffs. They're 8-9, but he's got the Carolina Panthers in the playoffs in year 2 with the quarterback who no one really knows if he's the truth or if he's not. He shows these little flashes, but for the most part, it's like I don't really see it in Bryce Young. But you're in a situation where it's 7-16. You are finally moving the football. You finally get a drive going. You start the drive on your own 35 after a Carolina field goal to make it a 2-score game. And there's still the fourth quarter just starts. So it's 14 minutes in the quarter. You have plenty of time. You just got to get points here. And Bryce get the pass to Rico Dowdle for 25 yards. Get into Tampa territory quick on the second play of the drive. You get a first down. You get all the way to Tampa Bay 20. And I don't know about you guys, but when I think of a flea flicker, it's like you're at the 50-yard line. You're in your own territory. You're taking a shot down the field. And it's wet in Tampa Bay. It's not clean conditions, like to hand the ball off to a guy who you're going to have to say to him, hey, you're going to have to stop on a dime, turn around, and flip the ball to the quarterback. When you need any type of points is just wildly irresponsible to me. And I don't really understand why that was the play call there, especially when you are moving the football. It's first down. No need for any type of gadget play. It is first down and you need points. And you're on the 20-yard line, a place that you hadn't been much of all day. You have 7 points on the board. And that's when you decide to pull out the flea flicker. I love trick plays. Like, I'm not a hater of them. But if you did it on the first play of the drive, you're trying to get a quick score, that's fine with me. But in this spot and I'm looking at the route concepts here, I don't know what the point of this play was going to be, because T-Mac, Tedero, McMillan, he runs like a 5-yard hitch, and then you have the receiver, whoever is going in motion, I can't quite tell who it is, number 15, I believe that's Horn. He's on a jet sweep motion, and he's going to be behind T-Mac. It was Jimmy Horn. Were they going to run a flea flicker, hook and ladder? Like, I genuinely have no idea what the vision of this play was, why it was called, because you don't even have a guy going deep down the field. Like, I'm literally looking at it, and I think it might have been a hook and ladder, which is the even crazier of a call, that to have the ball swap hands with people 4 times in one play. That was odd to me. That I just didn't really quite understand that. So you turn the ball over there, and the Bucs go on a 6-minute drive that you're trying to go up. It'd be 13, and they miss a kick. So you do have, or the kick is blocked. There's 5 minutes left. You have some time. And I'll give it to Bryce Young. He made some big time throws on this next drive. He makes a huge play to T-Mac on 4th and 8. They bring pressure, and T-Mac just runs by the corner, and he delivers the ball, and they score. But they can't stop the Bucs on their drive, and the Bucs win, but they can't celebrate for the NFC South. The Panthers get the ball with hardly any time, and the Panthers are going to be going to the playoffs because of the Atlanta Falcons, one of the hottest teams in football. Raheem Morris is fired. We'll talk about the fired coaches at the end of the show, but the Atlanta Falcons, who have won, I believe, every single game since they played the Seahawks. They've won 4 in a row. They beat the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Saints. The Saints are another super hot team. You got Tyler Shuck out there who, I mean, he threw a pick to put him back to the end of the game, but look at who he's playing with. He's got Audric Estime, who is, I don't think it's crazy to say that's the 4th best running back that has been the starting back for the Saints this season. Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Neal, the guy out of Kansas, I'm blanking on his first name, and Audric Estime, who carries the ball 21 times. I feel like every time he carried the ball, it was going nowhere. Jawan Johnson, who's a stud at tight end, I'll give it to him. But then you got Dante Pettis catching the ball 5 times for 60 yards. Estime, 5 for 43. Kevin Austin, 4 for 37. Taysom Hill, 3 catches. Ronnie Bell had a hell of a one-handed touchdown catch at the back of the end zone. It was quite and then you look at the other side, the Falcons, Bijan Robinson, 15 carries, 33 yards, Drake London, 4 for 78, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. I mean, just the stark comparison of weapons on both sides of the ball. And the Saints were in this game. The Saints, arguably, I think they got screwed in this game. There was a play in the second half where it's 4th and goal, and they're trying to go for it to go up. I believe it was to go up 1, or maybe go up 4. They were down 3 points, or they're down 6 points. I believe it was to go up 1, and they get to 4. They went for it, I think, 3 or 4 times this entire drive, and they got screwed. Shuck makes an amazing play. Shuck was making amazing plays. He was playmaking all day. He's making people miss, breaking sacks, throwing the crossbody throws, and this was another one of those. He steps up, he delivers to the left, and they call a fluky pass interference call on Dante Pettis. He's running towards the back of the end zone. They call it a pick play. It was the most incidental contact that I've seen in a while, and they called it a pick, and they end up having to take 3 there, which puts them only down 3, but Atlanta kicks it. New Orleans punts. Atlanta gets the ball back, punts it, and Shuck has a chance. He's moving them down the field, and he's trying to throw a slant on 3rd and 7. They read him like a book. He gets off his inside one very quick. He gets to the outside, and the DB Alford jumps it, and they end up getting 3, and that practically ends the game. But Shuck gave it a good try. The Falcons win. Make it a playoff berth for the Carolina Panthers. I think that the Bucs would have been the scarier team, just because obviously the weapons they have there. I know people say that about the Bucs every week. That's why they can win games. Look at the guys they have. But I'm happy the Panthers are in it. The Panthers deserve it. I know that they have limped their way in. They've lost their last 2 games to the Seahawks and the Bucs, but they earn this. They earn this. They have been a weird team to follow all season. They beat the Buccaneers 2 weeks ago, so they end up splitting with the Bucs. They beat the Rams. They beat the Falcons twice. They beat the Packers. Like, they deserve to get in, and it was a weird way to finish. But I'm happy for the Panthers. I don't know that they're gonna be able to give the Rams any sort of a run on Saturday, but I'm happy for the Carolina Panthers. So the rest of the NFC, let's talk about the 1 and 2, the 2 and 3 seed situation. So going into Sunday, if the Bears, who are facing the Lions, won, and even if the Eagles beat the Commanders, the Bears would be the 2 seed because the Bears hold the tiebreaker, and I believe they had the same record. But turns out the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, opts to, with the worst they can have is the 3 seed. He says, I'm going to sit my guys. Tanner McKee's going to start. Majority of the starters are not going to play, and we're going to use it as a sort of a bye week going into the first round of the playoffs, which is very, very reasonable. With the Bears obviously going to play for the 2 seed, going to play all their guys. But this kind of felt like a spot that the Lions were going to win the game. The Lions have nothing to play for. This is a Dan Campbell run team. They have a lot of pride. They're going up against their former offensive coordinator. This was a game that was very, very winnable for the Detroit Lions. And the Eagles still say, no, we'll stick at the 3. But the Bears end up losing the game. The Bears have had a rough game plan. They didn't really commit to running the football. Swift only had 10 carries for 40 yards. None guy 6 for 14. Caleb didn't have his best day. Threw an interception, 20 of 33. 212, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But Loveland had a massive day, 10 for 91. Detroit just they got off to a hot start. The Bears came back, tied it up, and the Bears just had some consequential plays towards the end of the game after that touchdown drive. And they got an interception with a chance to ice it, and they ended up going 3 and out. And they got to a 4th and 5, and there's a clip of Ben Johnson. I should have went for it, which I think shows you how much he trusts that defense right now. If they don't get Kyler Gordon back, who they've only had for 3 games all season, who they gave a huge contract to at the beginning of the year to play that slot corner role, and CJ Gardner-Johnson can't go, they're going to be in trouble next week against Green Bay. And I know Green Bay's banged up, and that's a divisional game, and anything can happen. But the Bears are in a spot where if they don't get pressure, and if they don't force these 1 to 2 turnovers a game, maybe even a 3, the defense is a massive, massive negative. They're just going to get dominated, pushed around all day, which is a bad thing for a team going into the playoffs. The offense is going to have to be clicking, which it was not in this game. But the Eagles end up losing the Commanders. So now, if, say, all the highest seeds win, or just looking at it from a point of if the Eagles beat the Niners, which I think that can go either way, and the Bears beat the Packers, no matter what happens in the Carolina game, because the Seahawks are the 1 seed and they will take the lowest overall seed, the Eagles are going to have to go to Chicago, and they only get 1 home game. When if they just played their starters, you think you're going to beat beat Washington. Even if you play them for the first half, sit in the second half, like whatever you think's just see what's going on. A potential another home playoff game next week rather than having to go to Chicago is massive. So I'm not sure. I don't really understand that. Some people are mad about it. Some people don't really care. Depends how you really think, but it's an NFL football game. Like, I don't really love that decision of sitting the guys. But to each their own. The Eagles chose this as they chose to settle for the 3 seed, and that's what they're going to get. So whatever happens from here on out, this is the path that they chose. We'll go to Sunday night now. What a football game this was. And I do have to say, I was hating, I was critical. I was like, the Seahawks should be Sunday Night Football, which, because on paper, it was a 13-3 team versus a 12-4 team. The winner gets the 1 seed. 2 better teams, obviously, but it was a bit of a snoozer of a game. Just because the Seahawks' ability to shut down the Niners didn't really ever punch back in this game. But this game on Sunday night, it had it all. For 3 quarters of this game, it felt like a typical AFC North battle. It was just low scoring, missed 4th downs, missed opportunities. It's a 10-10 game after the first drive of halftime, 10-3. You go into the half with the Steelers getting the ball to the 1-yard line and running this weird pitch play to Kenneth Gainwell and losing and not getting any points. They're down 7 points. Just scrappy. The Ravens come out really, really hot, running down their throat with Derrick Henry. They score a touchdown. And from that point on, they were just stagnant for 3 whole quarters. And it goes into the second half. The Steelers score. Lamar throws a pick. Just kind of a Looney Tunes interception, bounces off one person. TJ Watt picks it off. Just classic Mike Tomlin. This was such a Mike Tomlin game. He's making poor clock management decisions. He is trying to maybe kind of outthinking himself. And it goes in the 4th quarter, and it's 10-3. The Steelers are up 10-3 with a chance at the AFC North. And this is when it just starts going bonkers. I mean, these offenses just rose up from the dead. You get MVP Lamar. You get MVP Perk Rogers. Lamar makes an absolutely insane play on 3rd and 4 to Zay Flowers. When he has someone coming up to try to sack him, he breaks the sack. You have Patrick Queen chasing Zay Flowers, and it's 3rd and 4. And Lamar can run for the first down quite easily, and he has another person open underneath. But nope, he flips his hips and throws it all the way back over the middle of the field, a 50-yard bomb in stride to Zay Flowers. And it was like, okay, this is the Ravens game. They're going to turn it on now. That was peak Lamar. He's going to will the team to the playoffs. And the Steelers fight back. They make the plays they have to make. There's some questionable clock management decisions by Aaron Rodgers. They could have really came back to bite him. They have 2 timeouts going into this drive. And he's moving them down the field. There's 8 minutes to go to start this drive. And it's slow. The clock's ticking perfectly fine. You get to 3rd and 8. They get it all the way down to the Baltimore 5-yard line. And his headset, his helmet's not working. The microphone isn't working. He calls a timeout. Okay, you have 1 left. They hand the ball off. They don't get it on 2nd down. He gets to 3rd and goal, and he's getting on the ball, and he can't get the play call in. And he calls their last timeout. And he's like, I don't have to play. And Collinsworth and Tirico were like, he's been calling the offense all day. He can call. This whole 4th quarter was Rodgers at the line of scrimmage. He was telling guys, you run this, you run this. The 2-minute drill was it was vintage Rodgers. It was awesome to see. And they end up scoring. Gainwell runs it in to make it 20-17. And with 4 minutes to go, Lamar scores in 3 plays. And he makes an outstanding play on 3rd and 1. It was a great play by Todd Monken, a little fake toss. And Zay Flowers runs wide open again for a 65-yard touchdown score. And all of a sudden, there have been 3 touchdowns scored in the last 7 minutes of game time. And it sets up Aaron Rodgers with a chance in what people thought could be his last football game. That's why it was on Sunday night, I think one of the main storylines, to drive his team down in a 2-minute drill, 0 timeouts, 2 minutes 20 to go. And this was vintage, man. He was delivering strikes down the middle of the field. He's coordinated. Kenneth Gainwell makes a really, really underrated play, in my opinion. The 3rd play of the drive, it's 2nd and 2. There's 1:35 left, and it's a little flip screen. And if he gets tackled in the backfield, times that they keep ticking, they're going to be in 3rd down and probably 4 or 5. And they're going to have to, the sense of urgency is going to have to go up. And he breaks the tackle, runs for 15, gets him down to the 25. And this is when Rodgers does Rodgers things. He says in the huddle, he asks Calvin Austin what he wants. Someone tells him to cook him. He tells him on a hitch and go. He kind of gets him on a slip, delivers a perfect spiral for the touchdown. And Chris Boswell, one of the most reliable kickers in the entire NFL, one of the best kickers year in and year out in the entire NFL, misses the extra point and makes it a 2-point game. So a field goal for the Ravens can win the game. It can win the game. And Keaton Mitchell has an outstanding return. He gets all the way to the 50-yard line. They practically need 20 yards to get in the field goal range. 20 yards with 55 seconds and all three timeouts. All three timeouts. And this is just a classic Ravens instance of a Ravens ending of the football game. They just internally just don't make the right plays. They get down to the Pittsburgh 45, and Lamar actually makes a great play to Mark Andrews for 4 yards. It's going to be a first down. They're going to be to the 40. They call an illegal formation penalty, which I see people mad about online. I think it was the right call. He was too far back. Like, that's something that a ref's going to see every single play. The left tackle is too far back, lined up. And the complacency of the Ravens here was really, really weird to see, because he goes incomplete on 2nd and 7. Lamar's rolling to his left. He has a potential chance to hit DeAndre Hopkins for a large play, and he just chucks it over his head. He could have underhand dumped the ball to him, and Lamar said he wanted him to go upfield. He could have just lollipopped the ball to him, and he's going to keep running down the sideline. You're going to have a lot of time left. And I'll give it to Lamar. He makes an outstanding play on 4th down. 4th and 7. Isaiah Likely, contested catch. Jalen Ramsey whiffs on the ball. An absolute whiff. All he has to do is bat the ball down, and he goes up like he looks super unathletic, jumping through the air. And Isaiah Likely makes an insane catch, and there's 14 seconds left. And they're on the Pittsburgh 24-yard line. You're setting up a 42-yard field goal. Or a 44, it was a 42. And instead of handing the ball to Derrick Henry, who is not going to lose yards, he's a power back, to even just try and get 5 more yards and then call a timeout. With 14 seconds to go, or even throw an out route. You have a lot. You can throw a 5-yard out on the sideline and then knee it in the middle of the field. They take the knee at the middle of the field to lose 2 yards, set up a 44-yarder. Call the timeout with 2 seconds left. Just waste 12 seconds when every yard matters. Every yard in the NFL, a kick matters. He can make a 40-yarder from any hash. He moves it to the middle, and Tyler Lue pushes the kick. It felt kind of like fate after Boswell missed that kick. I didn't have a great feeling about the rookie. They're talking about how he's so good under 45. He's missed 1 of 3 kicks over 50, so they just had to get it close, and he's going to make it. He misses it. I've never been a massive Rodgers guy. I like Aaron Rodgers, but after the game, seeing the videos of him, like, he's happy. Tomlin hits the celebration in the camera. That was awesome to see. Like, I love seeing that. And they go to face the Texans, and they're facing them on Monday Night Football. We'll see what happens there. But I'm happy Rodgers, if this is the end, I'm happy he got one more chance to have a happy ending, I guess you could say, because it feels like he's always on the other end of these brutal, brutal losses. And he got his team on the field. He did his job. And fate had it that he's going to get one more dance at least next week, next Monday night. So today, as I'm recording it, is Black Monday in the NFL. And that means that all the teams that underperformed, didn't make the playoffs, they make their coaching decisions for if they're going to keep people around, who's going to get let go. And there was some, I wouldn't say that anything that happened today was surprising. I think a lot of it was rightful. There was a few spots that I thought could have been a coach fired that wasn't, and I'll talk about that as those in a second. But we'll talk what we have. The Falcons, we had this announced last night. Raheem Morris is fired. The GM, Terry Fantenot, I believe that's the name, he was fired as well. I think this is the right call. As much as it showed that the last 4 weeks of the season, they were one of the hottest teams in football, what does Raheem Morris really do? What I've seen a lot from him and his offensive staff, and the guy who's chosen to be his offensive coordinator multiple years in a row, is kind of incompetency. That's not a good NFL offense. There's a lot of talent on that team. And although you're hot at the right time and the players might like you, you're a player's coach, what he is doing for his team is not enough to give him another year. What has just happened? 8-9 2 years in a row. And what was the strong point of this team the last few weeks was the defense. And Jeff Ulbrich calls the defense. And I see a lot of Falcons fans wanting him to be retained. It's kind of a tough situation because a coach that comes in is going to want his guy to be, he's going to want to pick his defensive coordinator. Maybe that'll be part of the interview process. But Raheem Morris doesn't call the defense. Yes, he's a defensive-minded head coach, but this is Jeff Ulbrich's defense. So what Raheem Morris has left out there and what the GM has left out there is, it's just not, I think it was time. It has run its course. It was an interesting hire then, and I think that kind of Arthur Blank was done. He was done with the Raheem Morris experiment. I think that's the right call, and in Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski. A lot of people are saying that the Browns should not have let go of Kevin Stefanski. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this because yes, he was the coach of the year. What was that? That was a long time ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I think. But just what I had seen from him, the players, this whole season, him in the media, I think time had run its course. And yes, he's going to be probably going to get hired, and he's going to be a guy that he got fired and he's going to immediately get hired. It's always weird when that happens because other teams see a good quality NFL head coach there. But I think that's just one of those circumstances where time had run its course, and him in Cleveland and him with wherever the future of that franchise was going to go, whether they go quarterback, whatever they do coming up, I think it was meant to be for a fresh start, and I think that's probably the right decision. Pete Carroll, can Pete Carroll please retire? I didn't talk about it. He got a win. They beat the Chiefs. They go out with a game-winning field goal. Tyler Lockett's loving him. Can he just be done, please? Like, he's 74. He is a legend in the sport, coaching college and NFL, national championship, Super Bowl. I don't know if another team's going to give him a chance. I don't know why another team would give him a chance. He was supposed to come in and be a culture builder and raise the floor of any place that he came into, and they beat the Patriots week 1 and won 2 games the rest of the way. I don't think that he needs to I just hope he retires because I don't know see another team investing into him unless he wants to go coach college. That'd be very different. He can build up a program. I don't know if he should do that either. At this point in his life, I think he should just take on a Seahawks front office role, give him something in the building, let him be a legend and not take heat, and not be on the sidelines every week for a horribly run franchise, a horribly run organization. The Raiders are paying for 5 different coaches next year that have gotten fired. $50 million, $8 million for Antonio Pierce, $10 million for Josh McDaniels, $10 million for John Gruden, Pete Carroll's $16 million, and Chip Kelly's $6 million. It's quite ridiculous what they have done with like a coaching. I don't know who's going to be the coach. So they say Brady's going to be involved in the search. I'm not sure how they're going to coordinate that. Who's going to come in and probably coach Fernando Mendoza? You got to think it's going to be an offensive guy. That's kind of what you want there, but just a disaster in Vegas. And Jonathan Gannon, I think the Cardinals did the right thing. There was a lot of reports and people thought that Jonathan Gannon was going to stick around and they were going to give one more year. I don't know how you could have done that with how the season has played out. It's not like they were a bottom half of the NFC type team, a team that was in it every week. Like, they were horrible. They were 3-14. And this was a team that people were picking to be the dark horse of the NFC West. A lot of people had them above the Seahawks. They lost 9 in a row to end the season after they beat the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, a game where they looked actually like a pretty solidly run team. And Jonathan Gannon is a defensive head coach, and a defensive head coach was the coach of a team that was just getting dominated every week. They gave up 40 to the Texans, 26 to the Falcons, 37 to the Bengals, 37 to the Rams, 45 to the Rams, 27 to the Jags, 41 to the Niners, 44 to the Seahawks. You can't keep a guy around like that. There was nothing that he did to deserve another year. In year 3, when the rebuild was supposed to start with him, and they're at the reset of another rebuild, they're going to have to probably get a new quarterback. There was no reason to keep him around. So I think that was the right call to get rid of him. A guy that I thought should have been fired was Todd Bowles. I think it still could happen. He said as of midday he hadn't met with the Glazers yet, the owners of the Bucs. But Bucs fans want him gone. This team absolutely imploded this year, and I know some of it's due to injuries, but again, Todd Bowles is a defensive guy, and a lot of Bucs fans are mad that they let Liam Cohen out of the building. They think that they should have fired Bowles last year, promoted Liam Cohen, and look what that could have paid dividends at based on how this year's gone. But like, what has Todd Bowles shown to be an NFL head coach? He has been a good defensive coordinator on the Bucs. What has he done is to prove that he should get another chance with his team, who absolutely imploded this year. They were 5-1 and won 3 games the rest of the season. He's only won 10 games twice in his NFL head coaching career. In 2015 with the Jets, 10-6, and in last year with the Bucs when he was 10-7. He has just always achieved mediocrity. Like, he has never been an upper echelon tier. He overtook the Buccaneers after Brady left with a stacked roster, and he led them to 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, and 8-9. They have never overachieved expectations since he's been there. So I don't understand what he has done to deserve another year at the helm. They could bring in a great offensive mind. They have another kind of young group of receivers coming up to replace Evans and Godwin, and McMillan and Igbuka, Bucky Irving, Baker Mayfield. Like they could bring in an offensive mind there that could really utilize the talents there and rejuvenate the defense and bring in someone else to run the defense, because Todd Bowles' defense was, it's hard to say that was the weak point of the team, but they had no pass rush. They struggled a lot to get key stops every single time that they played a close game this year. And I just don't really understand what he did to save his job. So I would hope that news would come if I was a Bucs fan. I don't know that it is, because they seem to love Todd Bowles over there. The organization does. But if I was a Bucs fan, I would want Bowles out. All right, to wrap it up, I know this is kind of old news by now as I'm recording this, but the college football playoff, it delivered last week. I do have to say, I mean, 2 out of 4 games, I don't know if that's fully delivering, actually, but there was 2 high quality football games, and I think it sets up a really, really fun semifinal that we'll talk about on Thursday's show. We'll start with the New Year's Eve game. That was a fun one. The hate watch of Ohio State was fun. Miami takes down Ohio State 24-14. A game that they were in control of the entire time. They didn't come out of nowhere. They came out from the start of the game and they punched Ohio State in the throat. They dominated them. They were up 14-0 at halftime. They were thoroughly in control, and it was all came in the trenches. They pushed them around. Mark Fletcher, 19 carries, 90 yards. They didn't have Carson Beck didn't have to do much, but what Carson Beck did in this game impressed me more than if he had threw for 300 yards, because he is a guy who, I mean, a lot of people would say they don't trust him the most in the big game. And especially in the last few years, he's kind of a guy that's been carried by his Georgia teams, not made the big plays when he's needed to. He did exactly what he had to do in this game. He was from 19 to 26, 138 yards, 1 touchdown. He had a 95 QBR. He kept the ball out of harm's way. He converted a few massive third downs. He made quality throws on third down. And more importantly, he eliminated negative plays. He knew that they were pushing him around the run game. He knew that they were being able to get 5-6 yards a carry. And when he had pressure in his face, he'd step up and run. Even if he'd only make it back to the line of scrimmage, he wasn't taking the 10-yard sack or the 6-yard sack. A few times he was very, very decisive and stepped up and ran. He carried the ball 7 times to 23 yards. He was decisive, and he played an outstanding game that allowed Miami to win this game 24-14. He didn't deliver Ohio State any short fields. They were 7 of 14 on third down compared to 3 of 10 on third down for Julian Sayin and Ohio State. Their yard comparison, they had 291 total yards. Ohio State had 332. 0 interceptions. Sayin threw 2. They pushed him around. 153 yards on the ground, 45 for Ohio State. It was a really, really impressive game for Carson Beck. And on the Ohio State offensive front, Ryan Day takes over play calling. Everyone's like, thank God they got rid of Brian Hartline. He's not focused. And I thought he called a very, very poor game. Bo Jackson, 11 carries for 55 yards. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. And he only carries the ball 11 times. Z.J. Donaldson, 7 for 31, averaging 4, only carries the ball 7 times. In a game where you couldn't really get your passing offense going, stuff only really worked when you're just chucking it to Jeremiah Smith, which I think is a valid thing. But I mean, if you just think about the Ohio State Buckeyes, to go down 14-0, the first play of the drive after Miami goes up 7, they punch you in the mouth. It was a great play call by Miami. They get the heavy set in. Beck fakes a little run, dumps it off to Fletcher on the flat, kind of tricks the linebackers in the secondary. Great play call. The ensuing drive, the first play of the drive, they chuck it to Jeremiah Smith down the field for 60 yards. And Sayin gets sacked for 6 yards on a play that he shouldn't have been sacked. He had a wide open guy in the middle, the tight end, looks at him, just doesn't trust it at all. He's wide open and throws the pick 6 to Keontae Scott, who read Julian Sayin like a book. I mean, that was I don't know, Jeremiah Smith kind of doesn't really block him. I think he thinks he's going to go outside. Scott had obviously been watching film. He jumps in front of the block, catches the ball in stride like he was getting the ball thrown to him, and takes it to the house. And from that point on, it was like, is Ohio State going to be able to score 14? And they come out second half. They have a great first drive. It becomes 14-7. And Miami doesn't flinch. They get a huge 3 points, which in a situation for them where they were 1 for 4 kicking field goals in the Texas A&M game, to get 3 there and make a 49-yarder, their kicker, was a massive 3 points. It was 4th and 2. I thought they should have went for it. They did not, but to get the 3 points there was big because Ohio State scored. And they were in a position where they were only down 3, and they get a stop of Miami, and the Miami defense forces another stop. Bain, the defensive lineman, was the best player in this game, a game that included Jeremiah Smith, and I don't think that's crazy to say. He was the best player in this football game. And after that stop, the Miami offense goes on a game-clinching 10-play, 70-yard drive with gutsy conversions. Beck completed to Brown for 5 yards on a 3rd and 3. They get down to the 2-minute warning, and they completed a 13-yard pass to Daniels on 3rd and 4, which practically ended the game because that Ohio State will use their timeout. And then they run in for a touchdown. They go up 10. Satan throws an interception, and the game is over. And Miami knocks off the team that everyone said consensusly is the best team in the entire country. They're not going to lose to anyone. They're almost arguably better than they were last year, and Miami beats them. They flat out beat them. No fluke stuff. They beat Ohio State, and that was really, really impressive. That's 2 games of the slate were pretty disappointing. And the first one was Oregon, Texas Tech. I don't want to talk about this much. What a disaster for the Texas Tech offense. Just kind of shows you how fraudulent the Big 12 was. And I know Oregon's a good defense, but Bayron Morton, I believe his name is, Bayron Morton, 18 of 32, 2 interceptions, 2 of the worst interceptions I've seen. That second one in the end zone was horrible. You had a chance to actually get back into the football game, and you just throw it directly to this guy, directly to him. You're on the 9-yard line, and 0-yard run, 0-yard pass, interception to Finney, the same guy that caught the other one. And it could have been 13-7, and who knows what happens from there. But it was the Texas Tech defense held its own. The Texas Tech defense deserved to be in this game. And I don't think it's a crazy stretch to say that if Texas Tech had the JMU offense, they win this football game. They absolutely do. The JMU offense was actually moving the football. They were doing stuff to get down the field, whether it was trick stuff or not. They played well. And quite frankly, the defense just let them down. Oh, the offense just let them down. The Texas Tech defense deserved to be in this game. They got so many stops. There's just multiple instances of them keeping them in the game. Oregon had so many chances in this game, and they would either hold them the field goal if they got the ball in their own territory, or they'd turn them over on downs. What was Oregon on 4th down in this game? They weren't good. They were 4 of 8. They went for it 8 times. That means that's 4 turnover on downs that Texas Tech forced. And they were 4 of 19 on 3rd down. Also, they had so many chances for the offense to put one drive together. And it was just a absolutely disgusting, putrid performance by the Texas Tech offense. It was hard to watch. It was really, really hard to watch as someone that was rooting hard against Oregon. Alabama, Indiana, I was wrong about this game. Indiana dominated them. This was embarrassing for Kalen DeBoer. This is embarrassing for Ty Simpson, who gets benched, and Austin Mack comes in and looks better than him. He didn't look amazing, but he was delivering. He was pushing throws down the field, 11 of 16, 103 yards. Ty Simpson was 12 for 16 for 67 yards. He was their leading rusher, three carries for 17 yards. They didn't even try to establish a run game, which I think is just a slide on Ryan Grubb. I understand you guys have a poor running game, but dude, 8 total carries from running backs for 15 yards. You have to try a little more. The start of this game they had a few chances. They force a punt, they get the ball, and then they hold them to a field goal, and they're only down 3. And then Alabama turns the ball over on down. This was the questionable decision from DeBoer. 4th and 1 at your own 34, when your defense has gotten stops so far in the game, and he goes for it on a little flip pass to Jeremy Bernard. I didn't understand that at all. I thought that was him just outthinking himself. Signetti was in his head. They did the thing where they fake the snap, they call a timeout, they're gonna punt it. They did not punt it, and they ended up turning the ball, and that's when the game was over, because then they end up going to half 17-0, come out of the half, punt, and Indiana just rolled it. Indiana is the best team in the country by far, and I don't want to look forward to next year, but just this last few days, they've gotten a few of the best guys in the whole portal. Nick Marsh, stud out of Michigan State, Hoover, the quarterback at TCU, and a few other guys on the other side of the ball. They're great. They're great. On the last game, Ole Miss, Georgia. This was a fun one. Trinidad Chambliss is fun. He might have walked his way into, if he doesn't get his eligibility from the NCAA, and that being an NFL draft pick, quite honestly, for 362 yards, he willed Ole Miss to victory in a game where they were behind the 8 ball. They were winning the halftime down 9.5, where they actually played pretty well. They had a fumble that was unfortunate, And they kind of they played good a majority of the half, didn't capitalize, kicked a few field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. They were down 9, and it was like, hey, you're an underdog. You're down 9 now. What can you really do here? And they came out in the second half and just took it to Georgia. They took it to Georgia. Georgia misses a field goal. They score in 7 plays. I mean, that 3-play sequence of Trinidad's running all around every single play, that was Johnny Manziel-esque. And it felt like every single play, he was just putting the ball exactly where it needed to be. He was throwing absolute lasers, and he outplayed Gunnar Stockton, the more veteran quarterback in this game. Gunnar only threw for 203 yards, 18 to 31, 1 touchdown. But he was the best player in this football game. He, quite frankly, was. Kawan Lacey had 2 rushing touchdowns, 22 for 98. Fumbled, and that kind of put him in a rough spot. But Harrison Wallace, the receiver, 9 for 156. Deshaun Stribling, 7 for 122. It was a two-headed monster for Ole Miss in the passing game. And this was just a fun football game that they deserved to win. They thoroughly deserved to win this game, to drive them down the field with 55 seconds to go, get their kicker in position to win the game. And he makes the kick. College kicker drills the kick. That's something that Ohio State fans don't know anything about. It was happy. I'm happy to see that for the Rebels. And it sets up a very, very fun semifinal. A semifinal with no real, I mean, just looking at the landscape of the last 15 years, no blue buds. Like, Oregon's never won a natty. Indiana's never won a natty. Miami last won one in, like, I believe it was the early 2000s, maybe late 1990s. Ole Miss, I don't think they've ever won one. Maybe Indiana had won one like in the 60s or 50s. But we're going to have a winner, God forbid it's not Oregon, that we haven't seen in a while. And I think Indiana, I'll talk about these games on Thursday's show. We'll drop on Thursday morning. But Indiana, Oregon's a Big Ten rematch that we've seen already earlier this season. They matched up very well against each other. Indiana got the win. That's when they kind of got on the map of everyone else. And Ole Miss, Miami, a tale of 2 very different teams. Miami, who just kind of suffocated the Buckeyes with their physicality in the middle, and Ole Miss, who kind of took it to the more physical Georgia and had more firepower than them. So how can this Miami defense match up against this, like, high-powered Ole Miss offense? And can the Miami offense muster up a little bit more, some more points? Because you're going to need to score more than 24 points against Ole Miss, I think, which is weird because Ohio State obviously has such a great offense. But with a quarterback like Trinidad, much more of a threat than a quarterback like Sam, I expect that to be a fun kind of chess match between those 2 teams. And the Oregon Indiana game is going to be a nice Big Ten battle. I'm looking forward to both those games. So that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for listening. This was a really fun one. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of different storylines. Going to have a show out on Thursday talking about the college football games, talking about each NFL playoff game, any more coaches firings that happen. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for listening. Share with a friend if you made it this far. And yeah, thank you.